Welcome. We're starting off the new year with a new stride, a new set of anticipations, and meeting people who are at the top of their professions and figuring out how they got there. My name is Venugopal, and I'm the CEO of a company into advertising and branding. It's called Ideascape. And today, I have the honor of speaking with Gopal Padinjaruveetil. Padinjaruveetil means the house in the west. And Gopal has gone west a long time ago. He comes to us from Michigan in the US, and we've coordinated our schedules to ensure that he comes to you live. One of the really interesting things I found about Gopal when we first started interacting is that he calls himself a 21st century illiterate with a fractal mind actively seeking to practice unlearning and relearning. Now, when you see that he's the vice president and chief information security officer of the Auto Club Group, calling yourself illiterate calls for supreme confidence. So I have the privilege of chatting up with Gopal today, and let me bring him on board. What a pleasure to have you on the show, Gopal. We've been looking forward to doing this for some time, and I'm so glad that we're finally doing this. Thank you for coming on the show.
The honor is mine, Venu. I've been following your blog post, the Gilded Life, and your first. And personally, it is an honor for me that you considered me to be worthy of being on your show. Okay, so the honor is mine.
Thank you, Gopal. So let me, what exactly, brought about this aspect, 21st century illiterate, learning, unlearning? What was the thought behind this?
So my father was a very voracious reader. And growing up, I had access to his books. And one of the books that I found really fascinating was Alvin Toffler's Future Shock.
Right.
And in that book, there is a quote: in the 20th century, literacy is considered, can you read or write? That was considered to be, are you literate, is defined by, can you read or write? So if you can read and write, that means you're considered as a literate. And Alvin Toffler in the book said, the 21st century illiterate will be somebody who cannot unlearn and relearn.
Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, I took inspiration from Alvin Toffler and the book that I read, I don't know, probably 3-4 decades ago, that to be, because we collect a lot of information, and many of this information, because of science and facts, have come to be proved to be wrong. And we are not willing to let that go. We are not willing to know there's new information coming because of our biases. We are not willing to let that knowledge go or unlearn and relearn the thing. And I think for me, so that is where I think I said there's a lot, especially in my profession, there's a lot of things that is changing on a day-to-day basis. So I need to be constantly, and it's a conscious effort. I mean, that is why I just want to remind myself that I'm a know-nothing person. And I have to practice unlearning and relearning on a daily basis. Is that a satisfactory answer?
Wonderful. Okay. So doesn't this take a great deal of curiosity? Do you think you were a curious child right from the beginning? That must have been the beginning.
Yeah, and that is where I think if you say the fractal mind, that is based on fractals, and the concept of fractal is that it's a pattern that keeps repeating itself. Right. So you can start at any point in that fractal, and it keeps repeating itself. And that is where I realized, from a curiosity perspective, I've always been there's two things that I've always been a curious person, and I don't know why. And I've also been a lifelong learner. I never thought that
Right.
learning should end once you finish college, just right. So
Right.
right. So those are two defining, and I don't know how, because I can't say why. But that
Yeah.
has been two defining characteristics of my my personality, you can say. So I think
Okay.
there's a small story that when I was,
Huh.
back when I was growing up in India in the let's say late 60s. I was a 7 8 year old kid, and my grandmother used to live in Trichur, and I went there. And in those days, soccer was, I mean, even today, soccer is a big thing in Kerala. And
Yeah.
you really never, people never used to play with real soccer balls. They used to play with balls made of cloth wound together.
Wrapped around.
And
Right.
there used to be tournaments and things like that with that, right? So when my grandmother, her husband, my grandfather was a postman, so she used to get government pension, family pension. So, and she wanted to gift her grandson a good gift, so she really bought me a good soccer ball. And and she thought, I mean, like in those days, getting a real soccer ball is like
Big
getting
thing.
like a
Yeah.
PlayStation 5 or something like that, right? So but I went to the courtyard and then started bouncing this ball, and I saw this ball going way up above my head, and I said, wow, why is this thing going up? And I never had any understanding of expense, or this is expensive money. I mean, those things doesn't come into the mind of a kid, right? So, but
Right.
I was curious, so I ran into the kitchen, took a knife, and cut open the ball. And you won't believe, I was so ecstatic when I found there was nothing inside. And I think you and me have shared a video about nothingness, nothing, right? So I was
Right.
really fascinated when there is nothing inside and this thing can go. Obviously I didn't understand physics, right? So
Right.
I ran to my grandmother and told, hey, grandma, Achama, we used to call her. That's my
Right.
dad's mother, Achama, Achama,
Mother.
Achama. Uh, I found something. There's nothing. And she, in her infinite wisdom, didn't know to take a stick and thrash me for doing this. Or so we were living in a joint family, and she called all my cousins and said, you don't have to worry. We have a certified idiot in the family now. and and it is very way later in my life I started thinking, why did she call me an idiot instead of saying, Gopal, you have a very curious mind, right?
Okay.
But it never, right?
Right.
So like I said,
Right.
I've always been curious to go into the details of how things are working, and that has actually proved me very useful in my career, not being at that surface level, digging deeper and deeper to understand how things work at the foundation level, right? That is the
Yeah. Which is, yeah. And like you said, when you began, foundations are shifting all the time. The half life of knowledge today is a lot less than it used to be 100 years ago. We are learning new things, and whatever we know is getting outmoded. In certain places, no. In certain places, yes. So keeping on staying on top of things is getting really difficult. But from school down to college, what was your educational journey like?
Yeah, and I think my father, we were not rich, but we were not poor. My father was deputy general manager at Madras Fertilizers. So we were we were six kids, but we would be considered as upper middle class growing up in Chennai,
Right.
Adyar at that point of time. And I never had an interest in engineering. One of the interesting curses that life has given me is that I have incredible memory. If I see something, I will not forget it.
You don't forget.
No.
Okay.
And it's so, and my mom used to say that I used to just study the previous day of the exam and I go and get 90% mark. My mom used to say, if you study for 3 4 days or one week, you constantly,
Okay.
Gopal, do you know that you can get I said, I'm not. So I was really not into. And there are certain you call nimittams. I don't know. It's certain things that's bound to be. And I actually my father wanted me to do engineering. I got 100% in mathematics, 98 in physics, but sorry, 98 in chemistry. But and in those days, um, the mark you have a practical exam and a theory exam.
Right.
I got 98 in theory, and I don't know. I think there was some. I don't know. My practical master and I don't know what he thought about me, but
Okay.
out of 50 marks, I just got 8. And I know that
Oh,
experiment. It's a magnetism experiment, getting the strength of a magnet, and I could do it in my sleep. And there's no way, and I have no idea. And one of the key things at those point of time, you can actually you can submit for re-evaluation or recalculation or something. And practical is something that you can never. I mean, it is what it is, because it's
yeah.
done at a point of time. You can't submit to the university for re-evaluation,
Right.
right? So
Right.
they said that's it. Because of that,
Okay.
I was excluded from getting into an engineering college. And so
Which worked to your advantage, right?
I don't know. That's why I said nimittam. I'm going to talk about, when
Yeah.
we talk about my career, there
Right.
has been journey. There is certain, I come at crossroads, and I've made decisions which now thinking back, maybe there's some force. And I say that my father must have felt very guilty abandoning us at a very young age. So he must be looking from above and kind of subtly guiding us. I mean, that's a belief. Now, can you prove it, Gopal? I cannot. It's a belief that
Yeah.
we all have, because all the 6
Right.
kids, my mom was uneducated. She went to 9th grade. And she we lost the single earning member in the family. I was the eldest. I was in my teens. I had 4 sisters and 1 brother. We never knew how we are going to come up in life. But now looking
Right.
back, all of us are in, I mean, most of them are in much better position than me. Okay, let me put it this way. Right. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
something that is guiding us. I believe in that.
Right.
Right. So
Absolutely.
I took chemistry. I studied chemistry, actually. So I went to Vivekananda College, and when my father was there, he said, you should go to US, because he was working for this American Indo-American company, Madras Fertilizers, and he had a lot of
Okay.
American friends. And he was saying you should go and do your masters in America. And I've
Okay.
read so much of books, and I was fascinated by America. And my father died, and they said, you being the eldest of the family, you can't go abroad, you have to take care of your family. So the American dream. So I'd written TOEFL, and I was preparing for to go to US to do my masters, and I wanted to actually do in organic chemistry, but
Okay.
that never happened because of the untimely death of my father. And
Okay.
at those point of time, internet and computers were just coming up, and I thought this is the end because if you want to come to US, you have to come through the master's program and all those things. There was no internet. Right, there was
Right.
no IT in that perspective. So my dream of coming to US kind of died there. And so I went and joined. I took chemistry, and they offered, because my father was working there. They said, we are going to give you a job at Madras Fertilizers. That's your job.
Right.
That's going to be your first job. But for some reason, that after my graduation, that got delayed.
Okay.
And I wanted to get into, I mean, because I didn't want to sit at home. So I actually joined, my first job was that of um, a chemist, a metallurgical chemist
Okay.
in Paris, Kondichetti Street. The company was called, I don't think the company exists now. It's called Inspection India.
Okay.
That is my first
So,
job.
what did you have to do? What was the job?
The job was, so if you look at metals and steel, right, alloys, a lot of when you make equipments, or a lot of things are made out of steel and alloys. And different, you have copper alloys, steel alloys with different magnesium, chromium, tungsten. I mean, there's a lot of materials they add in making alloys. And that is what alloys give strength, because pure iron by itself is kind of useless. So when you add some impurities into the iron, like tungsten, magnesium, carbon is, I mean, carbon is always going to be there, but the lower the carbon the get. So you are testing. So when companies are buying steel to make their manufacturing, they need some quality assurance that it is, and every steel has got its own specification. So they want to make sure that the material, the steel that is being steel that comes in ingots or rods are to the specification. So there'll be field people who will go and take random samples. They'll bring it to the lab, and we are supposed to do chemical analysis on the samples and look at the specification of that alloy. And we have to do an actual sampling. You can't just take one of them. You have to, based on the size of the lot of what is being purchased, we have to actually collect multiple samples.
Figure out. Okay.
And then
that
come
seems
up
the opposite of where you are today.
Yes, and exactly. So that was my first job.
Right.
And then I got into Madras Fertilizers Limited as a process engineer, a process technician. Okay. And I would say it was one of the most happiest period of my life, because it was shift, but you go, I mean, it was close to a family when I was there. Right. And then I got married.
Okay.
And again, these are all, I would say these are all, there is no choice to me, in the sense that these things were bound to happen. I'm stitching a story of my timeline. Right. And actually you can see that there are certain, my father's death, my getting into chemistry, my not getting a good mark, right? So these are things that I'm weaving that story. You can see nothing is pre-planned. It is a series of events that were beyond my control that was making up this fabric of my life. I mean, when you listen to this, you should think it that way. It is not pre-planned. Right. There are many stopping points or crossroads in my life, and I took certain crossroads. And in space, why did I get, I could have married, mine was an arranged marriage. My family was from Trichur. We were looking for a girl in central Kerala, not from southern Kerala. It so happened there was a proposal from Trivandrum, and somehow things worked out, right? And I got married. Right. My wife came to Chennai. By the time I got married, and I was in my brother and sisters, they were all abroad. My brother studied chartered accountancy. He was a national rank holder in chartered accountancy and cost accountancy. Okay. He was working in KPMG Bahrain. My sisters were working for banks. My brother-in-laws were, so they were all abroad. I was the only guy who was kind of in
back
India.
In India. Okay.
Back in India and all those things. And my wife came and said, you seem to be a smart guy, Gopal, but you know what is lacking in you? You lack ambition in your life. I said, why do I need to have ambition? I'm happy. I'm contented in my life. Is there anything that you don't have? She said, no, but you can't be like this. You have to make use of your life to the maximum. You can't just be a contented person. So she kept pushing me. And so I was resisting her. No, I'm happy. We'll be fine in Chennai, right? And then happened an incident. There was an accident in the factory. I was working in the ammonia plant there, and there was an ammonia leakage. I almost died. And have you smelled ammonia? It's a very pungent gas. It's a very poisonous gas. And there was this ammonia leak, and we were trained what to do in case if you're in safety and all those things. So I removed all my dresses, and I went into the shower. I was holding my cloth and breathing through the wet, because ammonia is it has got a great affinity to water, right? So I was doing this, but still another 5 more minutes, I I should have been dead. But somebody in his great wisdom took all the courage and went and arrested the leak.
Okay.
And I mean, you can say he saved not only me, two other people's lives that day. And then when I came back and my wife said, I can't live this life, Gopal. I can't live in constant terror that whether you're going to come back home. You can, I said, accidents do happen. I mean, accidents happen all the
Right.
time. And actually, if you look at statistically, a chemical plant accident is extremely rare. A nuclear plant or a chemical plant, I mean, if you actually look at the statistics, they're extremely safe, right? She was not willing to buy that bullshit.
She was not, yeah.
Right? No. So she said, you need to change your career. And that is when internet was just booming. Distributed computing, when two computers can be connected to each other and they can send messages from one computer to another, right? That's called the distributed computing was just coming. And I said, okay, maybe because I was actually working in technology, but that is plant technology, what is now known as operational technology, SCADA, DLC,
Right.
PLCs, and all those things, right? So I understand the logic behind computers, and I mean, like how decisions are being made by machines, right? But this is a new, different world. So I kind of shifted to this world, and I ended up in the US. No, it
So
was
when did you,
that accident, and
when did you get to the US, in which year?
in early 2000, late 1999,
Okay.
2000.
Okay. And you got into a course, or you started work? What happened?
No, I did. Because yes, I did get into a course in Chennai, and there
Okay.
was this company called Advanced Technology Labs. That company is no more. It's an American company, and they saw a huge requirement for distributed computing people. And I mean, it's
Okay.
called component object model, DCOM, and there's a huge because e-commerce was mainframes were there, and Y2K and mainframe there, internet came, and e-commerce and everything was web, and everything was going to be put online. So this is huge need for people who understood the web technologies and distributed computing. So this company from US started their operations in Chennai, and their office was to be in Prince Towers. I don't know if it's in Haddo's Road. I don't know if that building is still there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And it's a very fancy building and office they had. So they gave us
Okay.
training and they gave us a job. But that
Okay.
company folded up. Folded up after 1 year, and that's the first time I lost the job.
Oh.
And I was in Chennai, and then again, it is a nimittam. I go to this, and I got another. I started teaching in Pentasoft. I don't know if you remember Pentasoft and Pentafor.
Right. They were into animation, right?
Yes, they were
that
they
was
were big
Penta.
on animation, and I think if you
Right.
look at history, Sun TV, they were one of the first one to do streaming TV, Num TV. I'm talking
Right.
90s, when there was no Netflix and all those things. They were the ones who were actually doing streaming of
Yeah.
TV called Num TV,
Okay.
right? So, but
Okay.
yes, it is a media company. It was a media company, and I started my career as in the training department there, right?
Okay.
And then I just go to a wedding, and I meet somebody and said, "Hey, are you interested in going to US?" I said, "Why not?" So he said, "Hey, there's this company doing interviews at the DBS building. Can you just go there on Monday?" So this was a weekend wedding. So I said, "Can you go there?" And I end up there, and they do interview, and they said, "Give your papers, Gopal. You're going to US." That's it. rest is. I wouldn't say rest is
As I
history,
say.
but there is
Yeah.
there's some really interesting career journeys
Right.
after that. And
So
each
we'll
of
get to
them
that.
different. Like I said, each of them were crossroads, and it led me to who I am and what I'm doing. Right, not only what I'm doing, and including Michigan. Right, because I was there's probably last places where if you're a computer engineer, you want to, right? I mean, so you'd rather go to California. But like I said, it is a series of events that
Right.
builds up my career. A very
Absolutely.
interesting, very interesting,
Absolutely.
right?
And like you said, Nimittam is one big part of how it all came about. But tell me, you spent a considerable amount of time in Capgemini as one of the largest companies as an enterprise architect. And then so why don't you take us through that initial bit first before we get to cybersecurity and information security? Where did the enterprise architecture part begin? And what exactly did it mean? And what was your role there?
So I started my career as a developer, right? So I started working on web development technologies, and in those days when I came to US, I came using and there was one of the most popular programs, computer programs or software was Cold Fusion at that point of time. It's very easy to develop a website using Cold Fusion because
Okay.
the language is very similar like HTML. It's a markup language, but it can do server side programming, and that is when
Okay.
using a tag like HTML tags. Uh, it used to be a Cold Fusion markup language, CFML, and you can actually write server side programming. So that's what I studied. I studied that in India, and it is for that skills I was brought to US. And
Okay.
that company, and this is interesting how technology world works. And the competition for that was from a company called Macromedia. I'm sure you must be aware
Yeah,
of
yeah. I've heard of Macrame. Yeah, absolutely.
Adobe Flash, right?
Right, right, right.
So, so the Cold Fusion was from a company called Allier, and they were the one who developed the technology. And this technology was taking the world by storm. And Macromedia, and this was impacting. Macromedia was a big company at that point of time, and it was
Right.
impacting Macromedia's revenues and
Yeah.
business. Macromedia decides to buy
And
this
Flash
company.
was really big at one point in time. It's
Oh,
only that
oh,
Apple
yeah,
came down
exactly.
on it like a ton of bricks and it just went somewhere else after that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, if you understand the way the technology works, right, and how the politics of software works is very interesting. So Macromedia, I'm not making any I'm not accusing
Right,
anybody of doing something wrong, but that, I mean, even you can see it today. I'm just giving an example of my
right,
journey. And Allier was brought by, acquired or merged with Macromedia. And when these things happen, and they have their own product, right? So they kind of killed Cold Fusion because they
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
promote their Flash and their
Yeah,
language and their thing. They brought this company, and maybe because nothing, something like that never came up. I mean, that was the dead end for that kind of a technology, a server side markup language. I think that was the kind of an end of that
right.
journey. So because
Okay.
the company died, acquired, people who started using it started changing to different technology. So I started my
Right,
career in development, and I was working in Verizon. And then when Cold Fusion died, and I think I lost my job
okay.
after 9/11. Uh,
Oh, oh,
and
okay.
it was a tough period for me, and that is where I think I've written that a new Gopal was born in 2001,
Yeah.
because until that point I was a little arrogant that I know the knowledge that I have, I can knowledge that I have, the skills that I have, everything I have, I cannot be without a job. The people will give me a job. I mean, the knowledge gave you that arrogance that I will get a job. But no, I mean, it's not what you know, what you are, I mean, right? There's many other things that, so if somebody is doesn't have a job, I want them to be inspired by me. Don't start questioning your knowledge, your skills. Nobody's going to steal from you. But for you to get that job, there's a lot of nimitams, or there's certain things you need to be in the right place at the right time to get that job. And if you're not in that right place at the right time, no matter how skilled you are, right, and don't start blaming yourself. I mean, and that is when I realized that I need to be a little humble, right? It's not just me. So a new me was born. I went and studied .NET. That was really a from Microsoft. That was really a big shift in programming language, .NET. And then I started working for Verizon as a consultant. And I used to work, and again, here is the nimittam. I'll tell you a nimittam. My son was born, I mean, Pranav was very young. We were living in Dallas. My office was, if I stand in my floor and wave my hand, my wife can wave at me. I mean, the apartment.
It was that close.
It was that close. There's a river in between. But
okay.
I was never home because I was actually working. We were in this critical project and a cutting edge project using .NET. And we had a lot of production issues. We went live. There's a lot of production issues. And we used to work 18, 19, 20 hours a day. And I remember I used to come back home around 6 o'clock, have dinner, and then go back to work at 9 o'clock at night, spend till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And at that point of time, my brilliant wife gave me a second ultimatum that, Gopal, this is not the life. I mean, I can't live like this. You can continue. If this is what you want to choose, this is what you want to do, you can continue, but I'm going back to India and Trivandrum. You can come and visit us, because we can't, because there's no weekends, there's nothing. I mean, this is
nothing.
And there's no end in sight. So I said, and I could understand the pain. We just moved to Dallas, and she had no friends, or she was not seeing her husband, right, and all those things. So she said, Gopal, this is not going to work out. I'm going back to India, and you can be here if you want. And so I said, no, I need to change, because this is not this mode is not sustainable. And then I went and told my consulting company, and then I got this call from Capgemini. And there's one place that I never wanted to work in US. That was New York.
Okay.
And it so happened, nimittam, get this call. I said, I told you I don't want a job in New York. They said, just do the interview, Gopal, because we are under a lot of pressure from my client that we are not presenting good candidates. So can you just take the interview to show them that we have good candidates? So I took the interview. They said, come join the client said, come join on Monday. And I said, no, I'm not going. I told you I'm not going. They said, no, Gopal, you have to go. There's no, we promise you it's just a 6 months. So they said it's a temporary job. A lady there got pregnant and she's going on maternity leave. Okay. So you're going there for maximum 6 months. And after 6 months, you can come back to Dallas or wherever you want to go. And I said, fine. So we relocated to New York, and we were living in New Jersey and working. It was a 2 hour 30 minutes commute every day, one way. Yeah. Because I had to drive, take my car to the Edison railway station, take the NJ Transit, go to Penn Station, get down, go to the subway, take the A train, get to 59th Street, walk from there 3 blocks. So it was an easy 2.5 hour.
But you still managed to spend more time at home in spite of 5 hours of commute either way?
Yeah, but the good thing was it was really a 9-to-5 job, in the sense that everybody used to go out, because everybody has to reach home. So I used to take the 7:30 train in the morning and reach the office around 9 o'clock, leave around 5 o'clock, take the 5:30 train, be home by 6:30. So it was a much better life. And then that was for Capgemini, right? And I was a consultant to Capgemini. And the second nimittam happened. There was another lady, a Russian lady, who was my teammate. So the first lady who got pregnant, she gave birth. She was about to come back, and they said, once she comes back, Gopal, you're free to go, right? She's okay. Right. But nimittam so happened, there was another young girl in my team. She got pregnant. And they said, Gopal, we're extending you.
Okay. Okay.
And it so happened they fired the manager there, and they offered me, Gopal, we want to give you that manager position to you
Okay.
as the team lead. And
Okay.
I said, fine. So that is how I actually, being consultant to Capgemini, I actually become an employee of Capgemini, and I was working
Okay.
there. And I
And
had
you
this
spent quite a few years, right?
15
Almost
years,
over a decade there.
over 15 years. And from a software developer, I became a architect, designing solutions. And then this whole notion of enterprise architecture was becoming good. And Capgemini had merged with Ernst & Young at that point in time in New York.
Right.
The Enron debacle was happening, and Bearing
Right.
Point and Anderson, I mean, all these consulting big firms, their consulting divisions were brought out. So KPMG and, Accenture and Ernst & Young technology was bought up by Capgemini. So, and I mean, there's a huge thing about enterprise architecture and certification. So I got into enterprise architecture, and there was this GM was in the midst of doing a major transformation back in 2006.
Okay.
And we had, Capgemini had put together a proposal for transforming there, and we got the work. And that was a time when web services and disconnected architecture, loosely coupled architectures were becoming popular, right? So,
Okay.
and I was on the cutting edge of that. So I think, so I came to, they said, hey, you want to go and work in GM? And again, this is a nimitta, because I was actually going into, my project in New York was coming to an end. I was actually going into work for Merrill Lynch. This is 2005. This was the boom of subprime. You ask for $1 in Wall Street, they'll give you $100. The money was like water
Flowing. Yeah.
flowing like water
Okay.
in Wall Street. And this is
Okay.
when I decided to move away from Wall Street and move back to Detroit, to a company that everybody was saying was going to go bankrupt. And people said, are you
Okay.
crazy, Gopal? You're leaving Wall Street and going to Detroit? Who will go to
Right.
Detroit?
It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, because and there's Detroit was safety, and everybody, I mean, we had, right? So are you really mad? I said, no, I am not, because for me, learning happens when you have scarcity, when something is scarce. And this is a company that is under a lot of pressure. There's no money. They have to survive. You need to solve problems under constraints. So I said, that is fascinating to me. And I said, if I can
Yeah.
go and work in GM and solve some of the problem, I can walk into any company and solve any problem. That's the kind of mindset. That's what moved me to as an enterprise architect in GM. And that was the
So let
time.
me just cut in there. What exactly can you take us through something which is simplified, where you said, okay, this is the architecture that is required. What is the problem without identifying what this thing is? Can you tell us something that you designed in a short way that a lay audience can understand?
Yeah, I think the whole idea is around disconnected architectures. I mean, can you mix it? So think about Legos, right? Legos are building blocks, and think about software as building block. But
Okay.
and you see in India, you can see that brick is, think about brick.
Right.
But once you build a house on brick and put cement, you can't change it, because
Right.
it's rigid and fixed. That's the monolithic architectures that evolved in software. But then said, no, this will not work. We want to make loosely coupled. You need to be able to remove these pieces,
Price
so
things apart.
and rebuild it. So think about this as
Okay.
Lego, right? Whereas you have these building blocks, you can build anything. You can build a house like thing with Lego, but then tomorrow you decide, no, I don't like it. You can rip it apart and build a car with that. So that the same thing was happening in technology, where there was a movement from an architecture perspective that's called service-oriented architecture, and where
Okay.
you can rip apart and reassemble things and come up with new solutions. And there is
Okay.
an architecture and a design concept that I was talking about, to build system that
Okay.
is loosely coupled, not monolithic
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah. In fact, there was a book, I think, Small Things Loosely Joined.
Yes.
At some point, I remember that,
Yeah.
that
There's a
is the
lot of,
title
yeah.
of a book that,
Yeah, and that is, I mean, that's what they're calling it microservices now, right? I mean, it
okay,
started with
okay,
web services. That's what they're calling it, microservices, small things, but loosely coupled. You can, and it's now, right now, REST-based microservices, APIs are a big thing in the industry, right? So it
right,
is nothing but smaller things that can
okay,
be
okay.
rearranged in beautiful ways.
Rearranged to the same. So, when did this move to cybersecurity happen? Was it a natural progression,
No,
or
it
is
is
it
nimitta.
was there nimittam at work again?
It is nimittam at work. Everything in my life is a nimittam, Venu.
Okay,
And I mean, and when I explain to this, you will understand. Around that point, web technologies. I mean, we are talking about websites and web technologies. They were never built with security in mind. They were built with functionality in mind. We want to get this done. We want to deliver this software or things faster. So everything was going at rapid speed. And on the parallel side, hackers were saying that we can attack these things, we can do these things. So they were defacing websites, they were attacking web applications, and they were causing major havoc. And this was seen as a big problem for big brands. And GM, as you know, is a global brand, right? And
right.
so there was these things happening to GM, and there was a desire from the leadership that we need to build security into the systems that is being designed. So we were architects, we were enterprise architects at that point of GM. So my role was that of an enterprise architect. And the leadership at GM, at the CEO and CIO level, they said, no, you can't just go and build stuff like this. You have to build them safely and securely. So there was this whole idea about that problem was given to enterprise architecture team to solve, to build design systems and build systems with security. That was non-existent at that point of in an organized way. Security was there in the servers or networks, because networks were being hacked and all those things, but software, web application software was never being hacked at that. And it is around that time software started getting attacked. So there was
Okay,
this whole program, and my boss, I remember my boss is one of the best bosses I have ever had. He empowered me. I mean, like I said, that is again a nimittam, where maybe another day, uh, when I got into General Motors, I could have, there's many positions open. They said, Gopal, you pick your position, because there's so many positions there. You decide which position you want. And looking at everything, there was one position that I want to pick. I picked up this position, and one of my mentors came and said, Gopal, I am not sure. I mean, you want to take it, we'll give it to you. But there is this person called Mike Desert. You will learn a lot. It's not that fancy as the position you're looking, but it is equally good. But you will get a huge learning opportunity under Mike Desert. I said, yeah, I mean, that's what I want. So I left, I listened to him and took on this, not this shiny thing, but it's a role, but maybe you can call a slightly lesser role. And that was phenomenal. I mean, like I said, that decision for me to listen to my mentor and take on that was a brilliant, I mean, I think it
move.
was nimittam.
Okay,
It's a nimittam. And Mike, when this whole security came, Mike came and said, we have to build a security practice here, and I want volunteers. He walked into, and we were a team of 10 people. He said, I want a volunteer to lead this.
okay,
Crickets, silence. And I raised my hand. I have no idea about, I'm an architect. I have no idea about security, but I'm willing to learn, Mike. He said, Gopal, don't worry. Even I don't know. Nobody knows. We are going to learn this together. So you
okay,
take it on. So he gave me, he unofficially anointed me into security. And
okay. And that's why, okay, I'm just going to using the analogy that you had started with earlier, which said loosely joined. Now, if I was to extend that, anything that is loosely joined has several points of entry. So, how do you take a system that is loosely joined and make it secure?
Yeah, and I think the key thing is every system has inputs and outputs. I mean, in software, right? I mean,
Right.
you're putting entry and right, you're putting right. The weakness is in the entry points and is in the entry points because you can actually inject. So if you look at computers are just following instructions. So code is nothing. Code is converted into binary. It's zero. End of the day, if you look at the
It's all zeros and
foundational
ones. Yeah.
level, it is zeros and ones. It
Yeah.
is something is getting translated at a kernel level and the hardware abstraction layer. And at the end of the day, it is 0 and 1. And you have code and you have data. And the instructions, these compute, and that's a fundamental flaw in the current architecture of the computers, is that trust is the computer at the point of 0 1, it doesn't know whether it is good or bad. It trusts the instruction that is given and it'll just execute the instruction without thinking too much because it just, here's the instruction, I trust the instruction that's given to me, I'll execute that instruction. Now the problem is, so you have code that is giving instruction to the computers, but you're feeding it with data. So you have let's say you're going to a database, give me Venugopal, right? So you're writing a query or something, select where first name equal to Venu, last name is equal to Gopal Nayak, right? You're giving an input to the code. The code is taking it and giving it to a database where there are million people, right? So if a hacker can just change the data from Venugopal Nair to, I'm just going to use Narayan's name, Narayan Kumar, it is going to give you, it doesn't know, it is going to give you Narayan Kumar's social security number, it is going to give you, I mean, whatever you ask, because it implicitly trusts the data that is coming into the system, right? And that is the fundamental problem, is the data, people can inject bad things into the data, the machine trusts the data implicitly, it'll just do what you're asking it to do, and that can cause huge harms. And that is the biggest problem. So that is where, and the more and more loosely going back to your problem, the more and more you're breaking up things and making it smaller and smaller, each of them becomes an easy entry point for the bad guy to inject something bad. Attack, we call it in the technical term in security is attack surface. So if you have your own body, we have a skin, right? I mean, if you look at worms, bacteria can get us through our mouth. Bacteria can get us through our ears. Bacteria can get us through our food. You fall down, you get an injury. Bacteria can. So those are our attack surface, and that is exactly the same concept. And the concept of a virus, I mean, you heard computer viruses. It is exactly the same like the human virus. It is exactly that analogy or the metaphor. Computer viruses are done. They're actually causing harm. End of the day, a computer virus is nothing but a software code. It is masquerading Trojan horse. I mean, it's called Trojans, and many words have been used from historical reference. The Troy,
exactly.
The Troy, right?
Which is what I find fascinating, that you go into metaphysical, you go into mythology, you get into so many of these things, biological analogies which are drawn. I mean, I guess we could just go on and on because we've reached the 50th minute of our conversation. So much as I would like to keep this going, I'd like to keep this within the realm of people who are coming in today. What is it that you see is offering great opportunity? And what is it that people should guard against? I think that is the note on which we will conclude today's discussion.
Yeah, and I think if you look at opportunities, when I was growing up, right, I grew up in a time where India's population was supposed to be the curse of the
Yeah.
right? And there was a time when whenever you go, wherever you go, no vacancy boards were found. Finding a job was very difficult. But now
Right.
India is booming, and everywhere software is booming. The opportunities are amazing. I mean, the amount of opportunities youngsters today have is great. But that's good news. But I'm teaching in universities, and one of the things that I would recommend is, and when I'm looking at youngsters, including my son or anybody, right? They all want to be billionaire by or millionaire by 30 and a billionaire by 40. And it is quite possible.
Right.
I mean, it is quite possible. And we are seeing, and like I said, I started as a chemist, right? Everybody wants to have this dream job, go to this dream college, dream job, but life is not that. Life is a marathon. Life is not a sprint. Life is marathon. So if you really think about uh, life as a whole, if a certified idiot like me can reach here, most of you are probably more intelligent than me. You can go to, you just need to change your perspective a little. Things are, you are at a certain point, like says Nimitam, but take that opportunity no matter what, right? And then you continue to build on that, and you will get to where you want to. Don't be disillusioned, because I'm seeing a lot of disillusionment that I didn't get this, or I didn't get this promotion, or I didn't get this job. I've lost my job. I've been through that many times, and I was never disheartened by that. And I said, that's a learning point for me, right? And I think that's the message I want to leave, is to the youngsters. Like, if from a 300 rupee job I can get to where I am, you can go to bigger heights. You just need to have the right mindset, is what I think. I hope that my life and my journey and the nimittams and the crossroads will give you an idea that you can be whoever you want to be, just with the right mindset. Is that okay, Venu?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you said is so important just now, that don't dwell on what you couldn't do.
Yes.
That often becomes like a drag on your entire mindset. So maybe that, the question that I need to be asking you is, how did you sustain yourself through the time when it was a setback, when you lost a job? What kept you going?
And this is where I believe in human connections. I have friends, and this is where I think you will find people who care for you, right? And they will give you strength, right? So you have to, when your own strength is gone, you don't have that strength, you have to dip into the strength of people who care about you, who love about you. And there are many people. I mean, all of us have people who care about us, and you need to dip into this, and they will be willing, and should be. And this is one of the other things that I really tell a lot of people. And I have no ego to go. If I need help, I will go and ask for help. I have no problem in asking for help. And one of
Right,
the key things that I've said was, two things can happen. If you ask for help, two things can happen. They can say, sorry, I can't help you. You can say thank you.
right,
They say, Gopal, I'm going to help you. You should say thank you and take that thing.
right,
So only this, if you go and ask, there's only two things can happen, right?
right.
No or yes.
Absolutely.
And you treat that with equal magnanimity and move on, right? But we need to be able to go and ask help when we need help, because we think that we can manage our entire lives by ourselves. We are an island. We are not an island.
Right. Absolutely. Such a wonderful set of experiences, a life to look back on. Thank you so much for doing this, Gopal, because it's been a pleasure. I just wish we could go on, but and I wish I could have gone a little more deeply into each aspect, but I think I needed to cover every single
Oh, yeah.
stage from where you were, a curiosity that was boundless, the ability to take on whatever came your way to begin with, and then say, okay, where does this go from here? And be willing to listen to people rather than just say, no, this is the only objective that I want to reach. Which I think that's a textbook case. That's a wonderful way of saying this is how you look at life, because When you wait for one door to open, you're ignoring the other five which are already open, which you could have walked through.
Yeah, and I think there's a saying, failures are stepping stones for success, right? And I think
Right,
I've been blessed with life has given me some good amount of failures. Let
right.
me put, I mean, right? So I want to end that with, I mean, think about failures as stepping stone, and I think
Right.
I'm blessed that life had given me good amount of failures.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for taking part in this. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Gopal.
Thank you for having me.
Right. That was Gopal Padinjaruveetil. And as the Chief Information Security Officer, I wish I could dwell a little more on the kind of challenges he's facing today and what are those things, but that is more in the nature of what I'd like to know. I think for the audience which is looking at to listen in, there's a whole lot that you can take from his life and where it started and where he is today. Next week, another interesting guest, another interesting career journey. Thank you as always for listening.